Hi, I'm Delaware State Representative Paul Baumbach, serving the 23rd House District. I also serve as the co-vice chair of the Retiree Health Benefits Advisory Subcommittee, and I have some comments I'd like to share regarding the State Employee Benefit Committee and items on their agenda for Monday, October 2nd. I attended their last meeting and was limited to a 3-minute amount of time during the public comment section. What I have to say will take more than that. And furthermore, I would like it to be considered before the SEBC acts on their agenda on the 2nd. So I am therefore taping this. I want to go over 4 items. I want to go over the SEBC, how it's structured, what its duties are, what its responsibilities are, and what its membership is, and how that's changed over time. I want to go over the recommendations the Retiree Health Benefits Advisory Subcommittee has approved and is recommending that the SEBC adopt regarding this RFP. I want to talk about the transparency in the process for the SEBC to go through and process the RFP, the request for proposal, and I want to go over our recommendation for how long the contract should be that the RFP is overseeing. So with that, I want to start. Let's go to the law. So the SEBC and the RHBAS are all set in Delaware Code. This is in Title 29 of the Delaware Code. And what you have in there is under 5210, it points out that the SEBC is responsible for the control and the management of the employee health benefit plan and the selection of carriers, the authority to adopt rules and regulations, and the authority to make and enter into any and all contracts. Note, this is not the authorities of the Department of Human Resources or the Secretary of the Department of Human Resources. This is the powers, duties, and responsibilities of the and functions of the SEBC. So please recognize, we've got 3 different entities here. Actually, we'll be talking about 4. We've got the SEBC, we've got the Department of Human Resources, we have the Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, Secretary of DHR, and we have the RHBAS. The SEBC is the one in which the authority to control and manage the health plan sits. Does not sit with the Cabinet Secretary, does not sit with that Cabinet Department. It sits with the SEBC. So you come down, and again, this is reinforced in a different section still in Title 29, Powers, Duties, control and management of all employee health benefits, select carriers, authority to contract, whether on an insured or self-insured basis, adopting all rules and regulations, and make and enter into any and all contracts. And right after that's the duties of the Secretary of Human Resources. They execute the policy set by the SEBC. They do not set the duties of the Secretary of Human Resources is not to set policy. It is to follow the policy set by the SEBC. Really important to understand that distinction. So what the Secretary of Human Resources is called to do in the Delaware Code is to follow the rules and regulations set by the SEBC, to go ahead and execute these. You need to have an open bid process when you're coming up with contracts. And there too, the Secretary of DHR is set to operate and follow the open bid process. Set up they're executors. This is the execution. This is the executive branch. They execute what's done per the policy of the SEBC. So very important to understand, I'm going to say the pecking order. The legislature does not execute anything. We set laws, either signed by the governor or we override vetoes. So we create the laws, and they are up to the executive branch to execute. Same as the SEBC. The SEBC sets the rules, and then the Secretary of the Department of Human Resources executes them. So I want to go over that. And then it points out what are the So we've got this Retiree Health Benefits Advisory Subcommittee. This came up in January under Senate Bill 29, passed by 75% plus of the General Assembly and signed by the governor into law. And we have powers and duties. I want to point to number 4. Evaluate the options for continuing to provide strong Delaware retiree health benefits in a fiscally sustainable way, including options to maintain their current coverage similar to residents in other states that offer a choice to buy into a Medicare supplement plan. So we are advisory. We're an advisory subcommittee, and we are to look at retiree health benefits choices and a way to do it that is financially responsible for the state. So with that, how are boards made up? And then let's look specifically at the SEBC. Let's start with the State Board of Education. I've got 3 columns, what the roles are. These are voting members currently, whether the person reports to the governor, whether the person was appointed by the governor. And what you see is all 7 members are appointed by the governor, and 0 of the 7 members report to the governor. And as a matter of fact, catch this, no person shall be appointed to the board who is in any way subject to its authority. The purpose of the board is to set policies and regulations for the state's public school system. I don't think there's much more important in our state than helping to educate our children. And this Board of Education is at the top of that, sets the rules and regs for that. And not a single one of them reports to the governor. And very importantly, none of them are subject to the authority of this board. So yes, there are non-voting members, including the Secretary of Education, quite proper. But again, none of them report to the governor. So then we come down to, before we pass Senate Bill 75, this is the makeup of the SEBC. There were 9 members. 3 of them are cabinet secretaries. So 3 of them report to the governor. 5 of them are in positions appointed by the governor. So the cabinet secretaries, the chief justice is appointed by the governor. All 4 of those have to be approved by the Senate. But again, they're named by the governor. But once appointed as chief justice, is pretty much not subject to what the governor directs them to do. There's no such thing there. We've got the separation of the branches. And then we've got an organizational representative representing one of the unions who represents state employees. And then, so there's the 5 that are in positions appointed or selected by the governor. But then the other 6 do not answer to the governor. And that includes 3 statewide elected positions: the Lieutenant Governor, Department of Insurance Commissioner, and the Treasurer of the state. And then the Controller General works for the legislature. So we've got a good separation in there. But notice that the majority of them are appointed by the governor, and a third of them report directly to the governor. So what happened with Senate Bill 75? Well, we changed the membership, and we followed a little closer to what the State Board of Education did. We now have only 5 of the 11. So that's less than half, less than the majority, less than the number needed to pass any motions that are appointed by the governor, and only 3 of 11 instead of a third, much less than that. I think 27% are report to the governor, and we've got 8 of them do not report to the governor. So we did that to provide balance. Now, I know we've heard the phrase from 2 of the cabinet secretaries that the RHBAS is micromanaging, and what State Representative and my colleague Mike Ramone pointed out very eloquently was how objectionable he found that characterization. What he said is, and he has several businesses that he runs, and he said, look, you don't need a micromanage when things are going well, but when there's a problem, then we need to go in and make some changes. And that's what the legislature did when the last health benefit plan for age 65 plus retirees selected by the SEBC was so objectionable that there was a lawsuit, and Superior Court judge has issued an order to put a halt to that. So we had a problem. The legislature went in and changed the makeup of the SEBC to make it much more balanced, less answerable to the governor, and to set up the RHBAS, which makes recommendations. So if we come back, so let's talk about the recommendations. So there we go. So this is a 2-page report, which SEBC members should have received either yesterday or this morning. It was approved yesterday Wednesday by the RHBAS. And it gives a little background, but let's just jump down to the bold at the bottom of page 1. So these are the motions that were approved. Many of them, let me see, 12-3. Some of them, I think all of them were at least 9-6. Actually, I think most of them were 12-3, with the cabinet secretaries voting against it or abstaining. So the first one is that all Medicare-eligible retirees, main thing is that you get the supplement, you don't get Medicare Advantage. The second one is, again, in this RFP, that the bid should only be, should not have anything to do with Medicare Advantage. And frankly, that is one which it appears that the SEBC is honoring that recommendation, is following it. So I'm very appreciative of that. The third one has been very problematic to me. I find it very problematic. This notes that some of the problems were the, as stated in the lawsuit, was that there was a very low level of transparency in the RFP process that the SEBC followed 2 years ago. And therefore, what this asks for is that the SEBC vote on the RFP, that it share the RFP to the public at least a week ahead of time, which it's refused to do, and that they accept public comment before the vote. It's kind of disingenuous to have public comment on something as important as the RFP if the public comment is after the vote, after it's already decided. That's frankly a bit insulting. Now, I know that I've heard one of the cabinet secretaries claim that, well, this isn't policy. There's no decisions in here in the RFP. And to that, I say hogwash. One of the very important elements to an RFP is what kind of plan it is looking for, what kind of health plans are being sought and solicited. That is policy. That is very important. So that is a piece that's in the RFP that the public has the right to see before the SEBC votes on it. Secondly, the makeup of the committee who will make the recommendation of which bid or bids to accept. That makeup is very important. As they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So it's important that we have that breadth of representation. Frankly, there's one big issue, and that has to do with designees, whether that in the past, the SEBC has appointed every member of the SEBC to that committee, but doesn't permit a designee effort. We've changed the membership to now have a retiree where everyone else can be designated. The retiree doesn't have the authority to designate. So it's important in that makeup that the retiree be permitted to designate someone to serve on that decision committee in their place if they're unable to. But then most importantly to me is that the RFP includes a list of the metrics that will be used when selecting one bid over another. So that's if you think about it, a professor takes the papers and how do they grade the papers? Well, content gets so much, style gets so much, et cetera, et cetera. And the RFP is the same thing. That table of the metrics is in the RFP. That is policy. How you're selecting which contract to recommend to the SEBC is policy. That is not administrative. And therefore, I view it as very important for the SEBC to have a say on this, and frankly, therefore, for the public to be able to share their opinion of it. I'm very disappointed that that the Secretary of DHR, who is a member of RHBAS, who's a member of the body that voted for this recommendation, did not take up with the SEBC the issue of having this shared with the public in advance. Now, I know that some members of the administration have questioned whether this is legal, and it is. I've consulted with a top state employee attorney who is quite well versed on this topic. And as long as a draft RFP is marked as a draft and it's shared with the public generally, so not just with certain bidders, but with everyone, as long as it is equal access to this in advance, there is no violation to the public bidding rules of our state. And so therefore, any of those concerns, it's fine to have concerns. They're not based in fact. The fact is it can be, and the fact is it should have been already shared with the public. It's been shared with the SEBC members, I'm told, has not been shared with me or the other members of the RHBAS who do not sit on the SEBC. And that's very disappointing. And it's pretty hard to have public comment on a document that hasn't been shared. So that's our third recommendation, which thus far has been ignored by the SEBC. Now, the next to last one is that the term of this, the current, both the pre-65 health plan and the 65 plus health plan, there's two different contracts, are both currently for 3 years plus two optional 1 year extensions. The Medicare, that 65 plus one, has been extended beyond that, but that's because of the court order. So the last RFP asked for a 3-year term with two optional 1-year extensions. As we are told by the SEBC, not that we've seen it, the draft RFP and changes that to be only a 2-year term. And I don't like that. And I don't like that for several reasons. So let me actually go to look at the term. Why do they want this? I know I've got tables and presentations and such. They want to be able to combine the RFP for both the pre-65 and the 65 plus folks. And I get that. It is less work. And that's important for the DHR department that is certainly asked to do a whole lot and asked its staff to do a whole lot. So that makes sense. And what they point out is the current pre-65 contract will expire on 6/30/26. And therefore, what they would like to do is have it combined with the RFP you're looking at, the SEBC is looking at, which if it was 2 years would expire on 12/31/26. So because they're expiring within 6 months, they could combine these two into a single RFP, and they could start the work 9/30/25. Now, I'm instead proposing, and not me, sorry, the RHBAS is recommending a 3-year term, and therefore that new 65 plus contract would not expire until 12/31/27. Obviously, a 12-month difference, and that delays by 12 months when the when the Secretary of DHR, who's responsible for executing the policies of the SEBC, when they really could start the process of the RFP for the replacement of the current sub 65 and the upcoming 65 plus health contracts. So why does that 1 year matter? Well, if you speak to the Secretary of DHR, they've shared with the RHBAS, and some RHBAS members have shared, they would like to see an earlier bid for the replacement, so that any beneficial changes that have come up that they can put into the next contract, that they can put them in place 12 months earlier. And that makes some sense. We get that. Why did the RHBAS consider that and reject that and move ahead with the recommendation for the 3-year term? What they said is, if you look at when this process begins, this has to do with elections. The next governor will be put into place January of 2025, and in less than 9 months, they will have to have their administration will have to have begun the RFP process. We don't know, who the cabinet secretary will be. We don't know who their senior staff will be, and they may not all be in place and ready to begin such a big effort. Frankly, I'll say, to me, more importantly, our retirees have been struggling so hard with the being hit over the head with, oh, your health benefits are going to be changed as of January 1st of this year. That's what they were told last June. And they didn't realize what was really going on until August with the public meetings that came out then. And they have been so confused. They've been anxious, and it's bad on many cases. The RHBAS passed this motion so that our retirees, instead of having 2 months of being able to sleep at nights, 2 years, they have 3 years of knowing that they can count on the next plan, which we're told will mirror their current Medicare plan. Please use our recommendations and make sure that the RFP that you vote upon, because you're the SEBC with the authority and the responsibility to set this policy, insist that the RFP have a 3-year term and not a 2-year term. I know I've been talking for quite a while. I really appreciate your attention to this. This is on my YouTube channel, where I have many what I call weekend updates on the work of the RHBAS. Please, I implore members of the SEBC to meet their statutory responsibilities and to set the policy and to insist on having a role, not a rubber stamp role, but a roll in the final RFP that you vote upon on Monday, October 2nd. Thank you very much. And I will see you on Monday the 2nd. Take care. Let me go back to, there we go. Thank you so much.